Hello, everybody. We talked about the power of imagination and the law of assumption, as Neville taught. We talked about living in the end. You assume that what you desire is already a fact, and then you live from that state. Leaving the past in the past, which is revision. We don't want to taint this moment right now because right now is when we're doing all of our creating. The now moment is the only time that we are creating. And if the past isn't something that you want to re-experience again, we talked about leaving it in the past. We talked about revising it so that you can remember it happening in the way that you would have wanted it to happen instead. But really, the true moment that matters in all of this is right now, what we're doing with our consciousness right now. That's tough, right? This is the part that people have the most trouble with, is living in faith, right? Because we're so used to seeing what the 3D reality is giving us, and we're trying to operate from that. We're asked to operate in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, but then you have your 3D reality showing you something totally different. And so Neville asks us to live in a state of faith, live in the assumption that what you want is already a fact. But we're so conditioned to believe with our five senses that faith is the substance that is required of us to believe in the unseen. So it really plays a very important part of the manifestation process. And again, we're living this life and we think that our whole purpose for living is to acquire more things, right? I want the car, I want the house, I want the job, I want the soulmate. It's like people and things that we want. That's what we think. But actually, all of those manifestations, let me remind you, it's there so that you can understand your power. That's what Neville actually says is the purpose of our lives. He says that God became man so that man can become God. Man can discover the truth that we really are. And, we came here for the experience. Now, I like this book. This book is called The Wisdom of Sundays. It's an Oprah book. And Oprah I used to watch when I was like a teenage girl, and she would always inspire me. In her introduction, she says, all of us are seeking the same thing. We share the desire to fulfill the highest, truest expressions of ourselves as human beings. That's what we're here for. We came into this world with a blank slate, and then we've had experiences, and we see what's available to us in the world around us. And that's what we're doing all day, every day, is we're just deciding what it is that we want to experience in this life. What would make us happy, right? Just because something makes me happy doesn't mean it would make you happy. This is why it's important to understand that being unique is actually what we're meant to be. We're really not meant to be like any other person. We are the ones that set the rules for how we want our lives to live. And to me, that's a really glorious and exciting thing. So why do people then find it so hard to live in faith? This is my favorite sweater. Let your faith be bigger than your fears. I've had this sweater since 2019, January 2019, literally a year before I dedicated myself to doing this work. We have faith and we have fears. Which one do you want to live in? Which one do you want to dwell in? One or the other. And to me, living in faith feels so much better than living in fear. Faith and persistence. What we want to do is we want to make it a way of being. This is part of the process. This is the hardest part of the process. But what we are doing as we are testing the works is we're building faith. That's what we're doing. We're building it. And building faith in the unseen gets to be a really fun experience. Neville said that faith is essential to his teachings and that he asked us to persist despite what our outer reality is showing us. Ask yourself, are you guys really persisting? Because that's the test. The test is still believing in the unseen, still living from the wish fulfilled state. Are we really doing that? It's a tough question because I honestly used to think that I was living in faith. But the real test is when things in your reality don't match what you've been doing, the work that you've been doing, the work of imagining. How are you guys responding to that? Are you still responding as a version of yourself that you want to be? Or are you reverting to the habits of your old man? And this is really important because if you're still responding as the version of yourself that were the habits of the old man, then that means you haven't changed. And what we're doing as we do this work is we're becoming the version of ourselves that we want to be. And we want to make that state so familiar to us and love that state so much that we give ourselves permission to let the old state go, the old version of ourselves. Are you guys familiar with Eckhart Tolle? Saw him in Toronto, I think back in 2017 or 18. He talks about the ego mind. Oprah said this. This was, I think, an interview with him. She says, "This is one of my favorite quotes of yours. You do not become good by trying to be good, but by finding the goodness that is already within you and allowing that goodness to emerge." Again, we're talking about going to presence, the divine within you, and bringing that forth to whatever it is you do. The work here for us testing these teachings is I want you guys to recognize the divinity within you, because when we get that, everything else will seem easy. You can believe anything, right? You can choose anything. Your wish, whatever you wish for, is God's command. So Neville asks us, faith in the assumption of the fulfilled desire. Are we assuming it's done? This is why we have to test it. My latest manifestation, which was so fun, was when my son asked me for a new VR headset, the virtual reality headset. And he already has one, but the one that he has now is a couple years old and he uses it often. But he was saying that he was having trouble with the controllers. And so we asked for another one. But then he thought about it and he's like, can you just get me the remote, not the remote, yeah, the remotes and a new battery, a new headset battery for it. And those are $400. And I'm like, you have one. So yes, I'll get you the controllers. The controllers were $100 on its own. But being the conscious creator, I just said, I want the virtual reality. And then I say, thank you, Father. Thank you. What we're doing is we're directing, telling God through our imagination and the way that we feel here within ourselves, what's happening in this inner world. This is us telling God the Father what we want. So we have to assume it. We have to assume that it's done. Everything is already within us. That I am state, the I am state where all possibilities exist. It's infinite potential that lives within us. And all we're doing is choosing from infinite potential. What do we want? And we find ourselves in a state that we don't necessarily like or want to experience more of. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to take our attention away from that state and remember it's only a state, and everything in that state contains within it all the experiences, all the beliefs, all the thoughts, all the feelings in that one state. If you don't like it, we use our imagination, remove ourselves from that state, withdrawing our senses from that, and then entering a new state. There's no healing involved. We don't have to heal ourselves because we are already perfection. We are already whole. As hard as that was for me to truly understand, this is why we practice it. And so this is our testing. We take ourselves out of that state. And sometimes we're so emotionally entangled in it, we don't like it. It doesn't feel good. We're frustrated. We're annoyed. Or even if we're not that, we may be happy here in this state. I know that I'm happy in my state right now. I may not have been about an hour ago when I was stressing, feeling the stress about having 40 people come to my house tomorrow, and I still wanted to do some last minute cleaning, last minute organizing. I have to bring up all of the dishware, the plates, the cups, the drinks. Yeah, 40 people. My family is a big family. Every time I find myself getting stressed out, I'm like, chill. Everything is going to work out. You don't have to stress out. Everything always manages to get done. And so that was me noticing I was in a state of stress, pulling myself out of it, doing whatever it is that I need to say to myself in order to make myself feel better, finding a different perspective, finding a different opinion, finding some compassion and kindness for me, trying not to be perfect. I was a perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect. And even today, it snowed a little bit. And when it snows outside and my husband puts salt, and then people walk into the house with their wet boots on, and, the salt leaves that white mark. Well, in the front foyer, it's nice and tiled, beautiful marble tile there. But then you walk in the house and it's black, like black floors like this, all throughout my house. I don't know what I was thinking when we installed that, because you cannot have black floors with kids and pets. It doesn't work out. But I just let it go. I'm just like, who cares? It's just floors, right? You don't have to make things a big deal, even though I much prefer it to look nice and clean and neat. But you know what? My floors aren't what makes the experience. I'm the one that makes the experience. So yes, I have the option to get all stressed out about it. But if I do that, I'm taking away from my experience of enjoying my family, enjoying the kids, enjoying their presence. I think about this every day, and maybe it's not such a good thing, but to me it is. I have both of my parents still with me. That I'm really grateful for. I have such a beautiful family, and I cherish that. I host 3 times a year in my house for Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, and I love it. It's exhausting though, but I love it. And I've let go of perfection because nobody really cares. And how many times I said, oh, this isn't right? And everybody's like, don't worry about it. It's okay. Sit down, relax. People get pissed off at me if I'm, trying to get the food all prepared and I haven't eaten and everybody's already eating, and I'm still fixing up the buffet, and people get mad. They're like, chill out. They would rather me sit with them and enjoy the time together with them than the buffet being perfect, right? And I don't do all the cooking. You know what we do in our family? Everybody brings a dish. Everybody contributes. This is the thing. I can make it stressful if I want to. And for years I did. But then I'm taking away from my experience. And you know what? We all have the freedom of choice. It's up to us how we experience it, right? Even my kids, I was wanting perfection when it comes to finding the perfect gifts for my kids. And I'm always constantly having to remind myself that this spirit of giving, it's not about the giving of gifts. Like, it's become so commercialized now these days, right? And it puts so much stress on people when it comes time to spending the money. I mean, I became a millionaire last year, and I'm still having that familiar feeling within me. It's a familiar feeling because for years, I was constantly under a state of stress when it came time to, spend money, how expensive everything is, and then anticipating the credit card coming in January and being all stressed out about that. It's important for us to really find a perspective that feels good. And so for 4 years before this, anytime I was trying to buy something, I would be reminding myself, you are abundant. Whenever I had that stressful feeling within myself, I'm like, right now, I'm dwelling in the state of stress. I'm not following the teachings. I'm not doing as Neville asked us to. If I continue to be in that state, I'm not truly testing, right? So what we have to do is we have to make that conscious choice to remove ourselves out of that state and put ourselves into that relaxed, calm feeling. Because if you were dwelling in the state of the wish fulfilled, you would feel relaxed, you would feel calm, you would feel secure, you would feel free. All those beautiful feelings, a life well lived, all is well. That's what we're going for. Those are the feelings that we are going for. So unless you're in those feelings, then that is a clear indication for you that you're not in the state of the wish fulfilled. That's our job, right? So he says, imagination. Neville says, imagination is the tool of faith. Oh, I never finished my story. So, anyways, I wanted the VR. I said, thank you, Father, for it. And then I let it go. This is actually one of the scriptures that I started leaning into because I understood that we only have to ask for it once. We have to decide what is it that we want. We decide we want it. We ask for it through our imagination and through our feeling. It says, ask and you shall receive. The moment you ask for it, you have received it in the spiritual realm. 3D takes some time. Sometimes it can happen in an instant, but our job is to remain in that state of receiving, in that state of calm. So I let it go. I didn't think about it again. I was okay. If I had to go and buy the $100 controllers, I was going to do that. Then in a mom group chat, I was just going through the messages. This was my hockey moms through my son's team. And there was a lady who was a principal of a private school. And she said, ladies, we're having an auction as a fundraiser for the school. Have a look. And she sent the link and then it had all the different items. So I was looking and scrolling and looking. Oh, there's a basket of wine. I'll put in a ticket on that. And then there was some gift certificates. I put my ticket in that. Then there was the virtual reality set. And do you know that nobody had bid on it? Not one bid. I put my bid in. It was starting at $100 and I just let it go. Thank you, Father. I say thank you, Father, all the time, as if it has been given to me, because you say thank you every single time you receive something, right? So that is me being in the state that I have received it. Thank you, Father. Then I know I don't have to think about it again. Well, of course, nobody put a bid in. And of course, I won it. I think that I put the bid in on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. The draw was happening on the Sunday. And yeah, I got the call the next day. Congratulations, Cheryl. You won 3 prizes. I won, I think, 4 bottles of wine, some gift certificates, and the VR. Picked it up. And with the VR, it even came with a case, a beautiful $30 hard case to put it in. To me, that's not something that you normally see in an auction. But of course, all people played their parts. This is what Neville says, is that you don't need to understand the how. That's not your job. You know what your job is? Your job is to embody the state of the wish fulfilled and believe that it's done. So we use your imagination. That is a tool that we can use. A tool of faith. Also, can you say thank you, Father, all the time? Yes, all the time. I'm always saying thank you. One of the things that I've noticed as I do this work is that we want to make the state of the wish fulfilled dominant, our dominant state of being. A place that we dwell in, right? Because if you were that person, you would be dwelling in that state all the time, right? And so what I often do is I try to find things that are currently in my experience right now that help me feel how I want to feel. I already have evidence in my here and now to help me remain in that state. And gratitude is definitely one of the easiest ways that we can do this. So what are you grateful for, right? When you truly feel grateful, and I want to point out, we don't use gratitude as something we use to manipulate. We don't say, oh, I have to feel gratitude so that I can get whatever it is that you desire. God knows when you're manipulating. And God knows when you're truly in the state of the wish fulfilled. Like, when you're truly grateful for something. When I was watching my son play hockey for the very first time in 2.5 months, he's coming off of an injury. And I was just watching him, and I swear, just by truly being present and seeing him on the ice and just being in total awe of his skating abilities, like he looks like he's floating on the ice because he's so smooth. And you know, when you're truly in a state of gratitude is when it brings up that feeling like of tears. It's like tears of joy. And I'm like, I'm so grateful. Thank you, God, that his injury wasn't, worse than it was, that he's recovered quite well, and he's back on the ice. I look at my family, I look at my husband, My husband and I have been through a lot. We've been married 30 years. We've been together 35 years. We dated in high school. And after 5 years of dating, we ended up getting pregnant with my daughter. I found out 2 weeks after we had graduated from college, and I felt like such a failure because I'm like, oh my God, disappointing my parents. And for a long time, I lived not feeling good enough. And then after I had my daughter, literally 6 months later, I was pregnant with my son. And that made me feel like even more of a disappointment to my parents, right? Because I went to school for 3 years and then ended up just staying at home with two kids. And it was like all that money that my parents put into my education. I felt so bad. And I lived with a lot of guilt and shame. I was literally living in a state of guilt and shame most of my life without even realizing that I was doing that. I was doing that to myself. I was choosing it, but I was choosing it unconsciously. And then when I found Neville's work, and he says that it doesn't matter what you did in the past. It doesn't matter that you can choose with your free will what you do right now. And so for 3.5 years, that's what I did. I was like, okay, choose again. This feels really crappy. Okay, choose again. And a lot of times I just had to let those feelings play out, the feelings of not being good enough. And it was constant reminding of myself, constant. You are the operant power of your reality. Did I heal my guilt? I'd like to say I did, but it's still there. Right? Guilt is still present within us. And a lot of times it will still come up. Like even still now when I'm buying Christmas presents and I'm spending money, I still have that feeling of guilt because it's so familiar to me. It's a habit. It's the habit of the old man. But it's not the fact that the guilt is present. What's the most important thing is how I respond to that guilt, right? It's whether or not I respond to it and allow it to take me over, the feelings of the old man, and consent to that, which if I do, it's going to make me feel bad. The guilt feels bad. And that's not what I want to be. That's not the state of the wish fulfilled that I want to dwell in. So it becomes your choice, how you respond to it. So the way that I currently respond to it now is I say, okay, I recognize I'm in a state of guilt. Don't want to embody this. Don't want to dwell in it. I can choose again. And that's what I do all day, every day. Faith and persistence is actually a way of being. This is why self-awareness is so important because you need to recognize what state you're in. And guilt and shame are two very popular states that people dwell in and they don't realize that they're doing it. Do you recognize that? Do you guys know when you're in a state of guilt? Like to me, it was very closely related to my self-worth, my worthiness, my deservability, me feeling good enough. You don't resist the resistance. You notice the resistance. Yes, you let it play out. When I find that I'm so emotionally entangled with it, it's like, when a snowball is up at the top of a hill and then it goes down. At the beginning, it's really small, right? The snowball starts off really small. And if you're up at the top and you see that the snowball is small, you can stop it from rolling down, right? Because there's not a lot of momentum yet. But if it's rolling and it's getting bigger and bigger, and that's usually what happens when we're not conscious of the state that we're in, and we allow that state to flare up and it gets bigger and bigger. Well, if you try to stop that same snowball at the bottom of the hill, you're not going to be able to do it. It's just going to run you over. So at that point, I just let it play out as well. Let the feeling be. I find that being in it and just recognizing there's really benefit into feeling it. Because when you understand, if you're in the thick of it and you're really feeling it and you don't like it, so then for me, the next time that feeling starts to come on again, I recognize it. I recognize it faster, and then it doesn't build that momentum. If I recognize it at the beginning, I can shift it. But Neville says, resist not evil. Don't resist it. Notice it. He wants us to notice it, be self-aware of it. And he says that he wants us to be indifferent to it. All evil is the opposite of what it is that we desire. Something that doesn't align with what we desire. And he says, resist not evil. Don't resist it. Instead, he says, renounce it. Just notice it and then turn your attention away from it. Okay, I don't like that feeling. Let it go. I'm very much too in surrendering things. What I'll do is I'll just say, okay, I recognize that I'm in a state that I don't want to be in, and I let it play out because I know that everything is temporary and that it will pass. I know it will pass. Everything does because we're in a constant mode of things changing, but I just surrender it. I surrender it by just saying, here, God, you take care of it. Doesn't he say that in the Bible? For us to give him our troubles because he can handle it. Why? Because he knows all is well. God the Father knows, consciousness knows all is well. What I also tell myself is just because I don't see movement happening doesn't mean it's not happening. And I remind myself of that often. What we want to do is we want to give all of our energy and attention to what it is we do want, right? We want to give all of our energy towards that. So when you're resisting resistance, when it comes in, resistance is like the doubt, the fear, the worry, the anxiety. If we give our attention to that, then yeah, it's true. It makes it go on and on. It just grows and grows. And then instead of putting our attention towards what we want, we're doing the opposite. So just notice it, be curious about it, and then turn away from it. Ask yourself, do I want more of that in my life? Do I want to experience that again? Because if I continue to give it my attention, then you're just making it bigger. What we're doing right now is going to meet us again in our future. It has to, because that's the way the law works. So do you want to experience more of that? Well, there are times where the momentum is too much, so we just roll with it, let it pass, and then refocus when we can get ourselves back to that state. Neville says, do not be anxious or impatient. The world is rearranging itself to fit your assumptions. Stay loyal to the vision in your imagination, regardless of external appearances. So this is something that we need to test. And all you're doing by testing it is responding as a version of yourself that you want to be. What I did is I put myself so far into the future where I believed in time that I would be that millionaire version of myself. And anytime anything came into my experience that had me doubting, that queasy feeling, this feeling right now of me feeling stressed out, how would Cheryl, 5 years from now, react to that? She'd be like, what are you talking about right now? Why are you so stressed out? We're abundant, right? Money is not the source of my abundance. I am the source of my abundance because I am one with God the Father. So for me, the past it was 3.5 years before I became a millionaire. But now, even 4.5 years later, I'm still constantly reminding myself, snap out of it. Remember who you are. Sometimes it can take me hours to do. Sometimes it can take me minutes. A minute. I can usually revise it right on the spot. How do you stay in the I am feeling to build on your self-worth? You do it with practice, right? Because we learn through repetition. The version of ourselves right now, who we're embodying right now, was built through repetition, right? They were concepts that we believed about ourselves that we kept repeating and repeating and repeating. So much so that we believe now that that's who we are. But the true version of yourself, the true you, is this divine presence. Did I read you guys about what Eckhart said about the ego? So he says, the ego makes judgments and longs to feel special. It loves conflict, creates enemies, and operates out of fear. In those moments, if you call your false self out by saying, oh, that's my ego flaring up, you begin to diminish its power, and you begin to recognize that you are not your past, your social status, or the shape of your body. The size of your bank account has no bearing on your true self. Us, one with God the Father, that's our true self. He says, what these conversations have taught me is that as we realize our own spiritual evolution, we have the miraculous ability to shed our current state of ego. Oh no, this is Oprah saying. We have the miraculous ability to shed our current state of ego. As Eckhart Tolle says, the ego cannot exist in consciousness. The I am state contains with it everything and nothing at the same time. It's like infinite possibilities, infinite potential. You can choose any state that you want to be. You can choose to be happy, you can choose to be sad. You can choose to feel high, you can choose to feel low. You can choose to be kind or you can choose to be unkind. It's always our decision. And in the I am state, you can choose anything. All the possibilities exist there. All the choices exist there. Who do you choose? So this is the thing with people. People will, out in the 3D world, they're always going to mirror back to us who our dominant state of being is. Okay. So don't get mad at the people when they come and you are triggered and pissed off at them, because what they're actually doing is they're doing you a favor. And as hard as that was for me to accept, because I'm like, no, 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 they're making me mad. Like, if we actually say that, then what ends up happening is you're saying that that person has so all this control over me, that we're giving away our power. That person can make me feel this bad. But when we realize that they're showing up in a way in which we believe within ourselves, well, they're revealing something about us because they're just being who they are. But it's the concept that I believe about them. That's what the issue is. It's not them. It's how I feel about them. And it's like, here's a good thing. So he says, I meet people and interact with people. I see them on two levels. Okay, so this is Eckhart saying, I meet people and interact with people. I see them on two levels or feel them on two levels. On one level, they are the form, which is the body and their psychological makeup. So who they're being, their body and who they're being, their physicalness. On the other level, they are the consciousness that I also am, the pure essence. So this is when Neville says that don't see the people, don't see what state they're in. Recognize them as God too. And when I started doing that, it actually made it a lot easier to be out in the world and be out with people. Because before, when I started doing this work, what did I want to do is like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want anybody to ruin my vibe, right? But actually, they're doing us a favor because they're revealing to us what needs to heal within us, where we've made assumptions that don't serve us. And the only way that you're going to know what that is if you go out and interact with people. So faith requires persistence, even in the face of circumstances that contradict your desired outcome. So remember that it's not the circumstances that matter to us, but how we respond to those circumstances, and that we have everything within ourselves to choose whatever response that is. And that response has to align with the being that we say that we want to be. And little by little, every single time you respond as a version of yourself that you want to be, you are becoming that person. You are embodying that state until you become so used to responding in that way that you become it. And then the old habits will die off. I want to read something. It comes from Your Faith is Your Fortune. So he says, here is a practical application of this mystery. Sit quietly and decide what it is you would like most to express or possess. After you've decided, you close your eyes and take your attention completely away from all that would deny the realization of the thing. So ignoring your 3D reality. Then assume a receptive attitude of mind and play the game of supposing by imagining how you would feel if you were now to realize your desire. So he says, assume a receptive state, a receptive attitude of mind, and play the game of supposing, oh, what if? What if I was this version of myself? He says, begin to listen as though space were talking to you and telling you that you are now that which you desire to be. This receptive attitude is a state of consciousness that you must assume before an impression can be made. So this is us directing our attention. As this pliable and impressive state of mind is attained, then begin to impress upon yourself the fact that you are that which you desire to be by claiming and feeling that you are now expressing and possessing that which you had decided to be and to have. You decided it. Continue in this attitude until the impression is made. So for me, I have really practiced embodying a state of relaxation. I'm very much a chilled out being. Even when something happens, I don't react to it. I respond to things. I take a moment to pause. So he says, as you contemplate being and possessing that which you decided to be and to have, you will notice that with every inhalation of breath, a joyful thrill courses through your entire being. So as you're imagining, you're going to feel it because it starts off in your head, but then your body is going to feel it as well. And so, do you feel that joy? Do you feel that joy? This thrill increases in intensity as you feel more and more the joy of being that which you are claiming yourself to be. Listen to the words he's saying. You're claiming it, claiming yourself to be that. Then, in one final deep inhalation, your whole being will explode with the joy of accomplishment, and you will know by your feeling that you are impregnated by God the Father. As soon as the impression is made, open your eyes and return to the world that but a few moments before you had shut out. So he says, like, this is really such a simple process. You don't have to like spend all day imagining. Like, if you can allow yourself to just relax, imagine you being that version of yourself that you already be and feel it within your body and make it feel so damn good. And then just sit with that a moment and allow yourself to experience the joy of that. And then after that, open your eyes and let it go. Go back to what you were doing. He says, in this receptive attitude of yours, while you contemplated being that which you desired to be, you were actually performing the spiritual act of generation. So you are now on your return from this silent meditation, a pregnant being bearing a child or impression, which child was immaculately conceived without the aid of man. So, you know what this reminds me of is like we're coming up to Christmas and they talk about this immaculate conception, right? That Mary had this baby, Jesus, through immaculate conception. And what Neville is saying is that we actually, by doing this work of imagining and feeling this thing that we desire and feeling it as if we already have it, what we're doing is we're impregnating ourselves and we don't need anybody else to do it. This is what Neville means, that the Bible is actually a guidebook for us. We have no way of knowing how this desire of ours is going to come to be, but we've impregnated ourselves with the desire by feeling it real within ourselves, right? And what do you do with the baby? You nurture it, you love it, you get excited for the birth of it. You don't see the baby. The baby's not there yet, it's still in your belly. You don't see any evidence of the baby except that feeling that you have. Your stomach is getting bigger, right? You're nurturing it, you're loving it, you're excited for it, you can feel the joy of it. That's what we have to do with our desire. But he goes on to say that doubt is the only force capable of disturbing the seed of impression. And he says, to avoid a miscarriage of so wonderful a child, walk in secrecy through the necessary interval of time that it will take the impression to become an expression. Tell no man of your spiritual romance. Lock your secret within your joy, confident and happy that someday you will bear the son of your lover by expressing and possessing the nature of your impression. Don't tell anybody if you can. Don't tell anybody. You know why? Because if you tell somebody and you have doubts within yourself, that person that you tell will often reflect your own doubt to you. So if you do tell somebody and they come at you with doubt, then how do you respond as a version of yourself that's already living it? You respond as that, right? You respond as that. Notice what your dominant feeling is. Notice what your dominant thoughts are. Whatever is dominant thought, when you think about that person, if it's not what you want it to be, change it. Change your story. It's important to change your story. No longer want to experience that story. This is what I want instead. And then every time you think of that person, make that the dominant story about them. Okay. So faith is really about testing it and persisting in it. We have had a lot of already people saying that they're more self-aware, which is a lot of the work. Noticing who you're being, noticing the state that you're embodying. I still sometimes don't catch myself. So this is why it has to be a way of being. We want to be the greatest expression of ourselves, unapologetically, with no shame, no guilt, and just claim who we want to be all the time. I have to go. Oh, I love you guys so much. Thank you, and talk to you later. Bye, guys.